Welcome to Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. I'm your host Dwayne, and today we're watching Halloween 2, which was released in 1981 as a direct sequel to the original Halloween. This movie continues right where the original left off, with Michael Myers still on the hunt for Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis still trying to stop him. We'll take a look back at this above-average horror sequel on the next Back to the Feature. Halloween 2 starts with a recap of how the original movie ended. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, sends the Doyle kids she's babysitting out into the neighborhood for help. Escaped mental patient Michael Myers has already killed several of her friends and has attacked her. The kids run down the street just as Michael's psychiatrist, Dr. Loomis, is walking nearby trying to find him. Inside the house, Laurie thinks she's killed Michael, but he gets up and attacks again. Before he can kill her, Dr. Loomis comes in and shoots Michael 6 times, causing him to fall off a second-story balcony. By the time Loomis goes to check on Michael, he's gone. We're in Michael's point of view as he makes his way through an alley, ducking to hide from Dr. Loomis and the police. Being a small town, no one locks their doors, allowing Michael to sneak into a house to steal a knife. These people have no idea how close they came to being murdered. Okay, well maybe she knows. Michael then goes to the house next door where a teenage girl is home alone. She's on the phone and news about Michael's escape is starting to spread. Michael uses his ninja skills to sneak in and stab her. No reason really, just because. The police are on the scene as Laurie is taken out of the house on a stretcher and placed into an ambulance to take her to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. At the hospital, a mom pulls up to the ER with her son, who got a razor stuck in his mouth after biting on an apple he received while trick-or-treating. This was a legit big fear back then, but was more of an urban legend. Either way, it was still freaky when they showed the close-up. Nope. Once inside the ER, Laurie doesn't want to be put under, but they do it anyway. For some reason, they decide to show close-up shots of the needle going into her arm. Dr. Loomis is riding shotgun with Sheriff Brackett as they drive around searching for Michael. Sheriff Brackett doesn't believe that Loomis shot Michael 6 times. Their conversation is interrupted though when Loomis spots Michael walking down the street. Loomis chases him on foot and Brackett stops him before he can shoot. Michael walks out into the street and gets hit head-on by a police car that then pins him against a van. To make matters worse, the van catches on fire and Michael burns to death right there on the street in front of everyone. Now that Michael is charbroiled, there's no way to confirm if it's actually Michael Myers. Before they can break out the marshmallows, Deputy Hunt rolls up and tells Sheriff Brackett that they found 3 bodies in the house across the street from the Doyle house. Then the news gets worse. One of the bodies is the sheriff's daughter, Annie. The deputy drives off with the sheriff and Loomis, just leaving Ghost Rider Michael there in the street still burning. The Wallace house is buzzing with activity. The local news is there reporting about the bodies found inside, while there are lots of onlookers watching the paramedics bring the victims out. The sheriff arrives just as the first body is brought out. He pulls the sheet back to reveal his daughter laying there with her eyes wide open and her throat cut. He calmly does the close the eyes move and covers her back up. Like any father, he's in shock at first, but then yells at Loomis for letting Myers out. With the sheriff a bit preoccupied, Deputy Hunt is now in charge. Loomis still isn't sure Michael is dead, and they have a whole discussion right in front of a reporter about the fact that he could still be out there. So they decide to have a dentist meet them at the coroner's office to be sure. Michael is walking down a main street in town and bumps into a kid carrying a boombox as he's listening to the news talk about Laurie Strode being taken to the local hospital. So guess where Michael's headed? Nurse Karen shows up for work just as Michael gets there, and inside the hospital, the security guard Garrett doesn't even notice him walking around on the security cameras. Jimmy hangs out in Laurie's room telling her about Michael. Turns out she didn't realize her boogeyman was Michael Myers, and she can't figure out why he would come after her. The phones aren't working, so Nurse Alves sends Janet down to tell Garrett to check it out. Garrett goes to check on the phone lines, leaving Janet in the hall with his extra radio. To heighten the fear factor, we get a cheap jump scare when a cat jumps out at Garrett. He realizes that someone broke into the storeroom, so he radios back to Janet to have someone get the police. Of course, she doesn't know how to use the radio, so she can't hear him. Just as Garrett is starting to get some of his confidence back, Michael shows up and buries the claws of a hammer into the top of his head. So yeah, he's dead. Meanwhile, at the coroner's office, Deputy Hunt and Dr. Loomis learn that their burned corpse is younger than Michael, so they have to assume that he's still alive. The deputy orders all the cops back out onto the street looking for him. A crowd is gathered and throwing rocks through the windows at the old Myers house as Deputy Hunt and Loomis show up. Michael's not there, but it gives another chance for Loomis to talk about how Michael was as a patient for the past 15 years. Laurie dreams she learned that she was adopted and that she once visited a boy in a mental hospital. She wakes up briefly and then it's back to sleep. Paramedic Bud talks Nurse Karen into joining him in the sauna for a little sexy time. While they're getting busy, Michael cranks up the sauna temp. It gets too hot for Karen, so she sends Bud out to turn it back down. She grabs her towel and sits on the outside of the sauna while Bud is in the background dealing with the temp valve. Michael comes up behind him and strangles him to death without Karen having a clue. With Bud out of the way, Michael makes his move on Karen. He walks up behind her and she assumes it's Bud when he places his hand on her shoulder. It's kind of comical and gross when she starts caressing his hand and kissing his finger. Michael's not really into foreplay because he yanks his hand away and she's toast once she turns around and sees him. He grabs her by the back of her head and starts dunking her into the scalding water. Each time he pulls her up, more and more skin is peeling off of her face. Then he holds her under for a long time and the super hot water doesn't seem to bother his hands at all. He then drops her dead body on the floor and goes about his business. Deputy Hunt and Dr. Loomis are called out to a local school where there's been a break-in. The assumption is that it was Michael who broke in, and inside one of the classrooms they find some blood and a kid's drawing of a family with a large knife sticking into the sister. On the wall, the word Sam Hain is written in blood. Loomis explains it means the Lord of the Dead and represents Halloween. They get a surprise guest when his colleague Marion Chambers shows up to escort him back to the mental hospital on the governor's orders. Since she has a U.S. Marshal there to assist in retrieving him, he doesn't have much of a choice. Michael is now freely wandering the halls of the hospital looking for Laurie. Jimmy is back with Laurie and she's kind of catatonic. He runs to get Nurse Jill while Janet runs to get the doctor. Janet goes to his office and his shower is running, but he's not there. She finds him sitting in his dark office ignoring her. Once she turns him around, she sees why he's so quiet. Dude has a hypodermic needle stuck in his eye. She slowly backs away and we see Michael's white mask slowly appear out of the darkness behind her. He grabs her and stabs her in the temple with a big needle and then drops her to the floor. Then we get his signature move, the classic head tilt. Jimmy is tired of waiting for the doctor, so he runs off to find Nurse Alves, leaving Nurse Jill alone with Laurie until she's called away to another patient. Michael approaches Laurie's room and starts stabbing the body in the bed, only to learn it's just pillows under the sheets. He fell for the oldest trick in the book. Sucker. Laurie wasn't so catatonic after all. She's drugged up and wobbly as hell, but making her way down the hall on her bad ankle. When Jill returns to her room, Laurie is gone and the pillows have been murdered. Laurie slips into an empty room and tries to use the phone, but it's still dead. She closes the door, curls up into a ball, and falls asleep. Nurse Jill and Jimmy can't seem to find anyone else, but they don't realize that Michael was right there watching the whole time. Jimmy finally finds Nurse Alves, but she's not doing so well. She's laid out on a gurney with all of her blood drained out of her. When Jimmy goes to leave, he slips on her blood and brains himself. Smooth. Meanwhile, Jill heads to the parking lot to go get help. Unfortunately for her, Michael has disabled all the cars and slashed their tires. Laurie is back on her feet and walking down the hall when Jill comes back in. Laurie turns around just in time to see Michael come up behind Jill and stab her in the back. And this is the point where we throw physics right out the window. He stabs her in the back with a scalpel and then lifts her straight up in the air and holds her there. No way that's physically possible. The race is on now. Laurie's adrenaline kicks in and she starts running away as fast as she can with Michael walking after her. She runs downstairs to the boiler room to hide and finds herself momentarily cornered. She's got moxie though because she shimmies up through a window and out the other side. He's back on her tail though as she's stuck waiting for the stupid slow-ass elevator. The door closes behind her just before Michael can reach in. She runs to the parking lot and hides in the front floorboard of a car. Dr. Loomis is riding with Marion and the U.S. Marshal as Marion tells Loomis about Laurie Strode being Michael's real sister. The information was hidden in a file no one knew about. He demands they turn the car around and pulls his gun to force the Marshal to go back to the hospital. Laurie is hiding in the car when Jimmy comes up and gets in the driver's seat. He tries to start the car, but it's not working. When Laurie says his name, you can tell he's pretty messed up. He tells her they're going to get out of there and then he passes out on the steering wheel laying right on the horn. She pulls him off the horn and tries to start the car. She obviously didn't get the memo about the cars being disabled. I don't know if Jimmy is dead at this point or just passed out again. Laurie gets out of the car but can only manage to crawl at this point. She lays there as Loomis and crew pull up right to the door. She tries to scream as they walk inside, but nothing comes out until they're already in. She gets on her feet just in time for Michael to show up outside and start following her. Laurie bangs on the door to be let in as Michael closes in. Loomis lets her in just in time and she hides behind him with Marion as Michael approaches the locked glass doors. Dr. Loomis has his trusty 6-shooter ready to go as Michael walks right through the glass door. He shoots Michael 5 more times and Michael finally falls flat on his back. Loomis warns the marshal to stay away from him and sends Marion out to the car to radio for more help. While Loomis comforts Laurie, the marshal bends down to check Michael's pulse. Dumbass, he was warned. Michael sits up and slits his throat with the scalpel, and then he's back up on his feet. Laurie and Dr. Loomis hide in an operating room and lock the door as Michael slow walks after them. Laurie crouches in the corner and Loomis gives her the marshal's gun. Michael pounds on the door as slow as he walks. He eventually breaks through the glass and then through the rest of the door. Once inside, he stabs Loomis in the stomach, and as Loomis goes down, Michael turns his attention to Laurie. As he approaches her, she says his name and he pauses and gives us that classic head tilt. His pause is only temporary though as he starts towards her again. She picks up the gun and shows some amazing marksmanship. She fires twice and hits both eyes. What are the odds? Michael just stands there bleeding from his eye holes. Now blind, he just starts swinging the scalpel all over while Loomis starts filling the room up with oxygen and ether. He then tells Laurie to get out, and you don't need to tell her twice. She's gone. It's time for Dr. Loomis and Michael to have one last therapy session. As Loomis stands in front of the gas outlets, he pulls out a cigarette lighter. As Michael walks towards him, he flicks his bic. The explosion is massive and sets the room in the hallway on fire. As Laurie hides behind a drinking fountain, Michael comes walking through the flames. Now he's completely on fire, so he doesn't get too far before he face plants and we get a close-up of the fire burning through his mask. In the epilogue, the police are there investigating and Deputy Hunt is told the body count is 10. Laurie is wheeled out in a wheelchair and placed in another ambulance while the news records her every move. As the ambulance drives away through the foggy morning, the song Mr. Sandman plays. The end. The Halloween franchise would go on to be a bit of a confusing mess with multiple timelines, a one-off non-Michael Myers entry, and a couple of remakes before finally coming to a conclusion in 2022 with Halloween Ends. Which of the Halloween movies is your favorite? Which timeline do you prefer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help grow this channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and hope you will come back for the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.